Well, welcome to our Weather Impact Report, where we take a look at the top weather stories here in Georgia and around the nation. I'm meteorologist Danielle Moss. Well, the word of the week is wildfires. Dry and windy conditions at the beginning of the week increased the wildfire risk across the South. Last Sunday, we told you about a wildfire in Floyd County that was very unsettling for families near Armucci. The wildfire forced evacuations and threatened homes. Take a look at this new video from the 11 Alive Sky Tracker showing the new fire in Floyd County. Firefighters with the Rome Floyd County Fire Department battled this large wildfire Tuesday afternoon off Highway 411. The fire spread near Norton Road and Mathis Road, and it's believed to have been deliberately set. 11 Alive's Grace King followed this story throughout the week.
On Sunday, about a dozen crews uniting against a fast-growing fire fueled by strong wind and dry brush.
A lot of resources are used, a lot of manpower is used. It's exhausting work.
Exhausting work on a nearly 200-acre wildfire that authorities are labeling as arson.
It was intentionally set as far as whether there was an intent to do as much damage as there was, that is not completely clear.
Floyd County police say a 22-year-old struggling with mental illness set pine straw on fire because she was angry at her dad. While she appeared remorseful to one officer, she told another setting the fire made her feel better. Now she's facing charges of arson and reckless conduct for starting a wildfire.
Due to dry conditions and strong winds, the fire was more than we could handle.
But the Floyd County firefight didn't end there. On Tuesday, they responded to another apparent arson on the opposite side of the county.
And the way they were set made me believe that they were intentionally set because they were not a continuous burn.
These fires can spread dangerously quick, especially with the current conditions. They're asking everyone to think twice.
Still really dangerous times to burn anything right now.
Now, authorities are still trying to figure out who set some of these fires. If you have any information that could be helpful, they're asking you to please give investigators a call. In Floyd County, Grace King, 11 Alive News.
Wildfire activity was very active across North Georgia all week long. Those dry and windy conditions made the blazes especially dangerous on Wednesday. When these conditions arise, they put your home in danger and your life at risk. The Georgia Forestry Commission says North Georgia is seeing particularly high numbers. This is especially true in the areas that were hard hit by Hurricane Helene 6 months ago. 11 Alive's Cody Alcorn was in North Georgia following a couple of fires that broke out in Hart County. He spoke to the Georgia Forestry Commission about the surge we're seeing in those wildfires.
I'm in Bowersville, about 95 miles from Atlanta, where you can still smell the smoke in the air. Hart County not dealing with one but two fires this afternoon, both fortunately contained tonight. The State Forestry Commission says the state has seen a 20% increase in wildfires this year already compared to the last 5 years.
Been a lot of them here lately, especially with the wind.
Wednesday afternoon, smoke was seen billowing from across Hart County due to a fast-moving field fire.
When we started headed this way, you could see the smoke all the way from Hartwell, which is 5 or 10 miles down the road.
The fire quickly spreading to nearby woods, destroying an outbuilding. Hart County Sheriff Chris Carroll says about every fire department in the county showed up, even requesting the Georgia Forestry Commission.
Especially with the wind.
Thomas Barrett, Forest Protection Chief with Georgia Forestry Commission.
We are seeing some pretty significant fire activity in North Georgia.
Besides this fire on Langford Road in Bowersville, check it out, Hart County Fire worked a second fire around the same time.
We did have another brush fire and vehicle fire on the other side of town a little bit earlier.
And about 50 miles to the northeast, the U.S. Forest Service battling the Big Ridge Fire, which is close to 500 acres in Clayton, Georgia. Chief Barrett says any area that was hit by Helene makes it tougher on the crews.
In the hurricane area, it certainly makes containing those fires a lot more difficult.
Even 6 months after the storm hit,
you've got a lot more sunlight that's hit the ground, so you've got a lot more fine fuels, or our kind of flashy fuels, we call them,
fueling the fire. And as for all the trees blown over,
that stuff is not quite burning yet, but it certainly makes containment difficult. So just trying to get into an area and get around it with our equipment is a lot harder than it was, say, 7 months ago.
Of course, most of North Georgia was under a red flag warning until just a few hours ago. If you don't have to burn anything, you should not be burning because, again, a lot of these fires are started by humans. And as of tonight, since January 1st, the Forestry Commission says they have responded to close to 1,600 wildfires that have burned nearly 14,000 acres across the state. In Bowersville, Cody Alcorn, 11 Alive News.
Well, fire crews are making progress on the Big Ridge fire in Rabun County. That fire is now 8% contained after burning 2,700 acres since last Saturday. Rain and higher humidity are helping slow the fire, giving crews a chance to build fire lines. So far, no evacuations have been ordered, but officials have asked people in the area to be ready just in case. Investigators are still searching for how this fire started. Anyone in the area last Saturday who knows anything suspicious is asked to call the Georgia Forestry Commission arson hotline. Fire crews have been having a very tough time on the front lines in both North Carolina and South Carolina, where fast-moving wildfires are threatening homes and lives. NBC's Marissa Parra is in Pickens, South Carolina, with the latest.
Firefighters in the Carolinas are working around the clock, trying to get the upper hand on raging wildfires that show no signs of slowing. North Carolina's Black Cove Complex fire, now the highest priority fire in the country, with over 500 people trying to tame it. The flames threatening a region still recovering from Hurricane Helene 6 months ago. Trees knocked over by that storm, literally adding fuel to the fire. In Hendersonville, sandwich store owner Matthew Rogers tells us how the home he calls the Cabin of Hope survived the storm, but it didn't survive the fires.
I woke up on Monday early and I saw on Facebook the house on fire, burning.
Further south across the state border, South Carolina's Table Rock and Persimmon Ridge fires are burning some 8 miles apart, the flames already scorching nearly 10 square miles. Officials urging everyone who lives between the two fires to get out.
You can see how intense the flames got when the fire came through here.
Helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft battling the flames from the skies.
Helicopters like the one you see behind me dropping down so they can connect that orange bucket beneath it. They're going to use that to fill it with water and then drop it where they need to.
Well, after Hurricane Helene, the storm's aftermath has made wildfires more likely. While hurricanes don't start fires directly, all the fallen trees, debris, and dry plants left behind can fuel those fires. With drier conditions and higher temperatures following the storm, it's created the perfect setup for wildfires to spread, keeping the risk high for affected areas. It's hard to believe that Wednesday was also 6 months since the hurricane made landfall, barreling through our area. We saw flooding from the heavy rain and, of course, a lot of trees and power lines that were toppled by the high winds. And 6 months ago on Wednesday morning, thousands of people were waking up to devastation in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. In fact, timber farmers in Georgia are still struggling with a loss of product and livelihood that takes generations to grow. While you may think timber farmers may benefit from knocked over trees, the storm actually leaves them with huge challenges and millions of dollars in losses. Hunter King reports.
It's been 6 months since Hurricane Helene came through this part of Truitland County and destroyed much of the timber here in this area. The smell of pine tar is still strong. This is a good example of the lasting impact that this storm had on this area. Where emerald forests once stood, now lie twisted trunks and broken dreams. Hurricane Helene wasn't just a storm, it was an economic earthquake for timber farmers like John Hutchison. He watched decades of careful cultivation topple in hours.
As a whole, we lost over $100,000 just on our tree farm.
The numbers are staggering. State estimates place statewide timber damage at $1.2 billion. It's a blow that ripples through entire rural communities. For small landowners, each fallen tree represents more than wood. It's lost income, interrupted generational plans, and a landscape forever changed.
These small tree farms, that's what they depend on. Yeah. And it just got flipped upside down.
Hutchison says salvage efforts have been painfully slow. Wet ground and damaged infrastructure mean much of the fallen timber will simply just rot. Of all of the acres that Hutchison owns, only a third could be reached for recovery. The rest, a potential total loss.
We were able to salvage about 40 acres out of 126 acres, more than likely just gonna rot.
Government assistance offers a glimmer of hope. Federal programs are working to provide grants, but the process is slow and hasn't been approved yet by the Trump administration. The Forestry Commission now hurries to assist and clean up with increased wildfire risks from the storm's destruction.
Well, these 6 months have been a time of rebuilding, reminded by tragedy and loss. Our sister station in Charlotte has been covering the devastation for the last 6 months. Austin Walker is in Avery County, revisiting some people he first spoke to right after the hurricane.
In the heart of Avery County lies the small community of Minneapolis, built along the North Toe River. And 6 months ago, this area saw immense destruction by Hurricane Helene. People lost their lives, but it's what the storm brought that some are holding on to.
It doesn't even seem possible it's been that long.
Change is like water.
I watched Bob and Edwina Tatum's house go by, and it was at that point I realized we might die.
It can bend a person to a breaking point.
It was eye-opening, the power to see that much power roaring through here, and that much destruction, that much death. And then at the end, it was calm.
Dawn and Yvonne reflect back on a memory, one that feels close.
10 a.m., about 30 minutes after I sat on the couch, I look out the window and it's just nothing but water. We sat there and prayed.
How is this even possible? 6 months ago to the day, the two trapped inside their home as water rushed in. At the time, they didn't think they would make it.
I texted my dad, my mom, texted my best friend in Reno, and my daughter, and told them I loved them, and hope to see him again someday.
The water calmed and receded enough to leave, looking out at the change it brought. Complete destruction, homes washed away, lives destroyed, and many taken.
Straight out by that rock.
It's the same water that ended up saving Dawn. Baptized in the middle of this river, a beautiful moment, but submerged with pain.
I missed this place before the storm. I love the amount of community that's come together because of the storm. But I miss what it was.
Since then, it's a slow journey of restoration.
Just things that are broken, but there's a beauty in the brokenness.
Reminded of that higher power who brought them through.
I'm way more religious today than I was the day of the storm.
The hurricane didn't test my faith, it confirmed it.
But sometimes change is a reminder.
We have plans. We have plans to baptize people in this river.
Everything continues to change. It's going to be a long time before this area returns back to what people know it as. But don't forget, broken is still beautiful. In Avery County, I'm Austin Walker.
Well, the winds of Hurricane Helene have passed and the storms left behind a trail of destruction. Homes have been damaged, neighborhoods erased, and loved ones lost in the chaos. Some families are still searching for those loved ones. Shay Smith in Knoxville has more.
Kelly Cloyd lives here in Johnson City now, but 6 months ago, when Hurricane Helene hit, she was living in Jonesboro along the Nolichucky River, one of the hardest hit areas. On September 27th, Kelly Cloyd's life completely changed in just a matter of hours, and it's been a long 6 months since.
Misery, sadness.
Kelly's husband, Steve, was at home with their dog when Helene moved through, destroying parts of East Tennessee.
He's sending me these progress report videos, and they're getting worse and worse and worse.
Kelly says Steve and their dog, Orion, got into the Jeep, but it would not start.
He calls and he tells me, Cal, I'm calling to tell you I love you, but this isn't good. I think this is the end. I said, oh, no, no, no.
The floodwaters swept Steve, the Jeep, and Orion away.
My last contact was at 2:48 p.m. and he says, on the move, which I knew meant he was in the Jeep and the Jeep was floating.
They found his Jeep and the dog, but never found Steve. Kelly, the family, and the community have been searching for him ever since. Kelly says throughout the grieving and searching, she has gained strength from a lot of people, including Steve.
Reach out to God first, my family back home, my friends, the community. But I talk to Steve. I see little signs and I'll say, I see you, I feel you. First person I talk to is God. You just seen that? Yeah, that's one of the signs.
Kelly says she is not going to give up searching for Steve until he is found. Reporting in Johnson City, I'm Shay Smith.
And they have a long road to recovery as well. It's only been a week since 3 tornadoes tore through parts of northwest Indiana, and some residents are concerned at the slow pace of their cleanup. V. Wynn has more.
New drone video is giving us an aerial view of the devastation over Gary, Indiana, from homes to this elementary school. Residents still dealing with the tornado cleanup 1 week later.
The community needs help. I will say this, we have not received the assistance that I believe we deserve.
Josetta Shropshire shows us the damage from inside her childhood home near 21st and Wallace and says she's been without power for days, running on a generator as crews work to rebuild her roof.
It could have been a lot worse. There could have been loss of life. This whole place could have collapsed.
At least 5 homes on her block had significant damage. Right across the street, McCullough Academy had part of its roof blown off in the gym. Piles of debris can be seen scattered over several yards.
We've never had tornadoes to this extreme. When I was a little girl, we used to have storms, but nothing like this.
The National Weather Service confirmed 3 tornadoes touched down in Gary last Wednesday night, one being an EF1 with winds of up to 110 miles per hour. The mayor signed an emergency declaration to ramp up recovery efforts.
Just that glimpse of it, it's horrifying. I mean, I've never seen anything that destructive in my life.
Larry Hickerson's house was spared, the tornado nearly missing it. He says it sounded like a freight train was coming through.
The experience was, I can't even bring it to words. I mean, I'm still afraid. I get goosebumps just thinking back on that moment.
The mayor's office told NBC 5 crews are still working to clear debris from affected areas and that his team is now gathering data on the fiscal impact of the storm to support their request for assistance from the state and federal government.
The people of Gary deserve respect and we deserve assistance and we need it.
Well, intense thunderstorms in Texas unleashed flash floods late Thursday into Friday. Crews performed dozens of water rescues. Fire officials from the city of Alamo confirmed at least 50 water rescues on Thursday alone. At one point, an emergency vehicle was unable to rescue a pregnant woman having contractions. Thankfully, a fire truck eventually made it through those floodwaters. However, 3 other people lost their lives due to the massive flooding. Well, rain, thunderstorms, and flooding did not stop the attendees from taking part in Ultra Music Fest in Miami on Sunday. During the last day of the festival, attendees and drivers had to deal with flooded streets caused by rain. Earlier in the day, the festival was put on pause as a precaution, but there were no evacuations. Despite the weather conditions, the festival continued on. Fortunately, Miami Fire Rescue says there were no weather-related incidents. Several attendees said they were not going to miss the event regardless of the weather.
Because I've come from London to Ultra and I'm not letting the weather stop me.
Yeah. We're heading in.
We're
excited.
We're there. We're here for Martin Garrix.
Yes.
He's closing on Sunday. We're here.
No problem. Let's go party.
No parties there. Well, down south, the pollen is taking over. Our temperatures are heating up and we are in the midst of severe weather season. That's typical for spring for us, but in Vermont, old man winter just won't let up. Check out this video. Freezing rain covered the power poles on Sunday. It left parts of the region encased in ice. Weather conditions consisted of an icy mix of sleet, freezing rain, and just regular old rain. Slippery travel lingered in pockets throughout the afternoon as residents also faced downed trees and power outages. At the height of the storm, more than 14,000 customers were without power. Power crews were working throughout the day to restore power and clean up the damage. Even residents who have lived in the region for decades say they have not seen an ice storm quite like that. That is crazy to think about. Well, if you felt like last year was a busy year for major disasters, it's because it was. In fact, the U.S. saw 90 declarations of major disasters in 2024. That's nearly double the average. The president can declare a major disaster anytime an event surpasses the ability of state and local government to respond. NOAA says 27 of last year's weather and climate disasters caused more than $1 billion in damage. Listen to this. 41% of the population lives in a county where a major disaster was declared in 2024. Many scientists say that climate change is a leading cause of increasing natural disasters. President Donald Trump is working to shift more responsibility for disaster recovery away from FEMA and to the states. Well, from the flames of wildfires to the fury of hurricanes, the weather's power is undeniable. Stay safe, stay prepared, and remember, we're always watching the skies so you don't have to. With your Weather Impact Report, I'm Danielle Moss.